All right. First of all, I need to make a correction from the previous video that involved right-click capturing. In particular, if I go down to where it was there on the button press event, okay? The question is, when you do a button press event, you get an event pointer, and it points to a structure, and one of the things in the structure is the button that was clicked. On a typical mouse, there are 3 buttons. There's the left button, the standard right button, and the scroll wheel in the center is also a button that you can push. So the question is, what are those buttons numbered? Well, they're numbered 1, 2, and 3. So the left button is 1, the center button is 2, and the right button is 3. I had that slightly backwards last time. Probably because the last time I did it, I didn't have a center button. But anyway, I've changed the code here so that when I click them, as you'll see in a moment, I'll see the number coming back. So the number coming back is event arrow button. So that's the pointer event that came in through the function call, and button is the value of the button. And then I change the code here so that if it's less than 3, I return false. In other words, if it's button 1 or button 2, I don't care. It's the right button I'm looking for. So that should be left or center. Fix that as well. Okay. First of all, we compile it, and then we run it. All right, the button in question was this one down here, I think. And you notice that was a right click. Okay, this is the left click. You see it's 1. This is the center click. It's 2. There's my printout in the background. And the right click is 3. So 1, 2, whoops, 1, 2, 3. I don't use the center button very often. I don't think terribly many people do. But that was me hitting the roller, and it caused the terminal window to roll. But okay, there they are. It's 1, 2, 3. Wanted to get that corrected. All right, the next thing is capturing the actual scroll event. And let's see, where did I put the code? Here it is here. So we're going to work backwards. Going to show what it looks like, then we're going to look at the code. So this is what we're going to do. First of all, I have a label here, and it's got the value row 1 in it. It's text. There's an array of 5 lines of text. They are row 1, row 2, row 3, row 4, and row 5. Then there's this play button. Clicking it doesn't do anything, okay? I haven't added, but running the scroll bar on it does. You see, you probably can hear me rolling the scroll bar. And when I roll the scroll bar, you see the contents of the text changes, which is what I'm interested in. Then if I get the right text, I would presumably click it, and it would play music or something. It would play whatever was in here, or do something with whatever is in here. That's irrelevant. The question is, how do I capture the scroll movement, which you can see I'm doing there. Whee! I'm good at that this morning. All right, so we shut that down, and we go back into the code. Well, we got a couple of places in the code that needed to be modified. This is accumulating code, so it's getting longer. First of all, I added a button 4. That button you saw that had play in it, that's button 4. Maybe I should go back up here to the Glade itself and find it. There's button 4, okay? Well, that's not button 4. Yes, there it is. That's button 4 right there. Okay, button 4. It's button 4. It's got a place. It's the usual. Width and height request have been removed. I put the word play in it someplace right down here. So it's a pretty common, ordinary button, and it doesn't really do anything. But the important thing over here is that I picked up the scroll event on that button. And here it is down here. There's the clicked. Probably to finish this out, of course, I would do something when it's clicked, but I don't care right now. So there's the clicked. I haven't filled that in. But under widget, widget might be showing like that, and you don't even see this. But under all these signals under widget, I went to scroll event. That's the one. On button 4 scroll event. So that means if you're on top of the button and you roll the scroll wheel on your mouse, this is the event that comes through. That's the one I'm interested in. All right, anything else? No. Then I added this label, which shows up as transparent until you click on it. It's an ordinary garden variety label. It's called Label 3. That's the name I gave it because I will be changing its contents. Its contents Glade, or just the word label, but that'll quickly change because I'll put one of the initial row in it when the program starts. So we get two things. We get button 4 and we get label 3. Turns out that's label 3. It's the third one we've got in here. Probably should need some more descriptive name. So there's button 4. You can see it was added. And someplace down here we've got label 3, added in the normal fashion. All right. Here is the rows. These are also global. It's a 5 rows of 10 character array. And the contents are row 1, row 2, row 3, row 4, row 5. This could be an array, a character array of anything. It's your problem. But I just made this dummy array of 5 lines for purposes of illustration. And none of the lines can be more than 9 characters because there has to be a byte for the null terminator on each one of them. But it could be a list of, let's say, music files that you want to play, whatever it is. I don't know. Okay, let's look for the next one. In the button, we pulled it out in the usual fashion here. Here's where we pull out the button. Here's where we pull out the label, usual fashion. Nothing unusual there yet. And now I go further down to just before we go into GTK main. That's when when the main threads start. But before I go into it, here is where I get started. First of all, we have 2 variables which I forgot to mention. I've added current row, countdown, a current row. It's the current row that's displaying in that label. Okay, these up here were for the countdown progress bar. Current row, okay, it's global integer, nothing special. It's 0. I'm going to show the first row. So I set the text of label 3. Notice it's being cast because technically it was declared as a widget, but it is a label. Cast it to a label. And I passed to it the text I want in it, rows sub current row, and current row is 0, so the 0th row, the first row, is displayed in the label immediately. And I project it to be a gchar star. Kind of doesn't really matter, won't complain. Regular char star would work, which is what it is. Okay, colors. I want the label to stand out with a color. You may have noticed it had a slightly, I think it was, slightly reddish tint to it as I look at the numbers here. Otherwise, the label is invisible. The area of the label is invisible, but I wanted to have it highlighted. So there's my color numbers. Remember, color was declared up above someplace here, and GDK color, there it is right up here. So I'm just reusing the same structure. Okay, color red, green, blue, that's a color I picked out. Pick out another color. And then I modify the background of the label to be that color. And that gives me a color on the label as opposed to a transparent label. Transparent label is a little weird looking. I wanted to color something so you could see the label. I have to do it here because if I try to do it here, here's the label. If I go into Edit Attributes and I change the background color, I'm only changing the background color of the text itself, not the label. So it's only the text in the label that would be changed. So that's the difference. If you say, well, why didn't you modify the background in the Glade? Because they do it differently. One's a modification of the background of the text. The other is the background of the object, in this case, the label. Next trick is this line here. GTK widget set events, button 4, GTK scroll mask. What I'm doing is when you're running events from the screen don't normally drop down. Now, obviously, certain mouse events are already part of GTK. But if you want additional events to come into your program, you've got to say so, and that's what I'm doing. I'm telling the system that that button 4 can receive scroll events. The GDK is the desktop environment. And it's saying it's allowed to receive the scroll events. You can look these up. Look up GDK event scroll on Google, and you will find the documentation for it and a bunch of other events as well. So and the function you could also look up. But so that scroll mask means that I can receive. If you don't put this in, you can't receive scroll events. Doesn't matter what else you've done. This is important. You got to have this in here, or scroll events will not pass through to the object in question. And the object in question this time is button 4. So let's see. Those are allowed events. I think we're okay now. So we've done two things. We've put the color in the background, the label, so it's more visible on the screen. And we've allowed scroll events to come into button 4. That doesn't mean scroll events can go to anybody else. It's only button 4. You could add a whole bunch of these lines. Okay, let's go down to the bottom. This is the only function that I wrote in. It's on button 4 scroll event. That's the only signal for button 4 that I've turned on. Obviously, I'd turn on clicked later, but at this point, this is as far as I'm going. And it mentions here, see GTK event scroll and set events. These are two things you need to be aware of because of the way it works. All right, we get the label. Now I'm getting a label here. That's wrong. It doesn't matter because I don't use it, but it's actually a button. That should have been button. And I'll tell you why and I'll change that to B, because I don't use it anywhere in the code. It's not important. Let me make it a lowercase. Looks funny as uppercase. The reason is that when I initially did this, I tried to enable the scroll events. I'll go back over here. I'm sorry this is so confusing, but go over here and I'll go to the label. Am I in the label now? Yes, I'm in the label. And if you look in the signals for the label, there is a scroll event. Oh, I actually still have it here. The problem is labels can't receive scroll events. Even if you turn on that GTK, the label can't receive a scroll event. I thought that was removed. It's just not there. I know it's in the text here, but that's kind of boilerplate text. Every widget has all this stuff, but not every widget can receive everything that's in here. And to the best of my knowledge, I cannot find any way to get a label to receive a scroll event. I tried, didn't work. So it may be here, and it's tempting, as you say, I already tried it that way. That's why the thing was written with GTK label, because I thought I was coming in as a label event, and I'm not. I was actually coming in as a button event. So on the button event over here, we do have on button 4 scroll event, because buttons can receive scroll events. Don't ask me why. Don't ask me why labels can't. They just apparently can't, and I don't know the reason why. But a button can. So the button is set up to receive the scroll event. So if you do a scroll event, the function that's going to get called is going to be on button 4 scroll event, and I'm going to get, of course, the pointer to the button, which I don't particularly use. I'm not changing the button. The other thing I get is the event, the scroll event pointer, and that's what I'm going to be using. Notice it's also a return of a Boolean, because this is event processing. We have to tell it true or false, whether we want additional processing or whether we're done. Now in this case we're done, so we're always passing back true. But in the case of events, you pass back true or false in order to indicate whether or not further processing. Like up here, when we were capturing the right click, if it was buttons 1 or 2, I return false, because they can continue to process. For example, it could be something involving button 1, which is button 1 clicked, the first button on the mouse clicked. So I return a false, saying I'm allowing further processing on this signal. But if it's a right click, in other words, it would presumably be 3. I don't think any mouse has more than 3 buttons. I come down here and I eventually return true, indicating I'm finished processing. Don't process this signal any further. I've done everything that's necessary. So false means continue processing and see if anybody else wants a crack at it. True means we're done processing, don't let anybody else play with it. And the same is true here. So on the scroll event, I'm processing the scroll event. When I'm done, it's done. We don't want any further processing on the scroll event. All right, have we confused this sufficiently? So I've got the button now properly in here, but I don't use it, so at least I don't think I use it. We'll find out when I compile. And I get the event. The event's the question thing. E arrow direction, all right? There's 2 directions, up and down, okay? I hope there's only 2. I don't think there's 3. So if the direction is 1, it means that you scroll down. I guess that means towards you. And if it's the other way, you scrolled in the other direction. You move the roller in the other direction. So there's 2 directions of the roller. So basically what happens here, if you've moved it in one direction, we will increment the current row. I guess I did almost backwards here, but anyway, we'll increment the current row and display a current row being, making sure that we don't go outside the limit, which is 0 through 4. It's a 5-element array, but they're indexed 0 through 4. So we display a current row as appropriate by incrementing. On the other direction, we decrement, and as long as it's greater than 0, if it's not greater than 0, which means it's 0, we don't decrement. But anyway, we display in the other direction. So basically, these two sections of code will display the next higher or the next lower, if there is one, row from that array called rows. And in all cases, we return true, indicating we're finished processing. So when I do the scroll bar, it'll come in here, and in one direction, it does this. In the other direction, it does that. And I don't know what up and down actually mean here. So these are backwards. I believe that should be the other way around. I'm not going to worry about it. They're kind of arbitrary. All right. Whoops. I made some changes. Okay, there was you did use that button. So it didn't. So it was the variable L that had originally been there wasn't in use. So all right. Let's see. Oops. All right, we're back in here again, and I put it. I guess I put it where is it here? It's around here someplace. All right, it's in the 4th frame, and that's actually it goes up when I'm rolling it towards me. So I guess that is down. Okay, I'm turning the roller away from me, and it goes down, and I'm pulling the roller towards me, it goes up. I don't know which is natural. Okay, but this is the way it's working. You can play with it and alter it. You can make it go in the other direction if you want. But you see, every time I'm doing this, when these clicks, of course, when I get to the high point there, it's not clicking anymore because it's already reached row 4. It's not going, which is visually row 5, but it's not going to go any further. So we go back and forth, and when you get the thing in here that you want, you could click play, and then, or whatever it does, I don't know. Could be looking up addresses, email addresses, any number of possibilities. I don't care. Whenever you get what's in here that you want, you click the button to do something with it. In which case, of course, you would have to go to the button and you'd have to establish what happens when it was clicked, which is in terms of the button, that would be establishing what goes here on button clicked, which I haven't established anything because there is nothing to be done as far as I'm concerned. So anyway, what have we got in the event here? We've capturing the scroll wheel movement.